Lopez wants it away. And it's hit deep to left center. Andrew Jones on the run. This one has a chance. Home run! Mike Piazza and the Mets lead 3-2. Bartolo has done it! The impossible has happened! This is one of the great moments in the history of baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mets fans of all ages, here is your host, Nick Durst. Hello, Mets fans. Welcome back into the Bleav in the Mets podcast right here on the Bleav Network. I am your host, Nick Durst, and for once, we're going on here to do a show where we can say the Mets won a series. They beat the Nationals 3-4, and who cares? Does it matter? No, it does not really not, because it was a very weird setting at Citi Field on Saturday night. Mets were in a funk, it seemed, or a haze, lavender haze, because they traded Max Scherzer. Now, everyone saw on the last episode, I was not happy with the return of the David Robertson trade, and the timing of it didn't make much sense because he was the best closer on the market, and the deadline was many days away, and they trade him, and it just was a little surprising, to say the least. So here we have the Scherzer trade, which really came out of nowhere as well. So when it came to these trades, if there's a rain delay, watch out, because Billy Eppler, he's going to get antsy. He's going to start making moves, and that's what he did. He traded Robertson in the rain delay, and then trades Max Scherzer in the rain delay. So hopefully Billy has a lot of umbrellas and raincoat and poncho, because this guy, he just can't take the rain delay. He's got to stay active. He's got to stay busy. That's what he did. He traded Max Scherzer. For the Max Scherzer return here, they get Luis Angel Acuna, who is a shortstop. So obviously they're going to change his position. Now maybe they'll put him in the outfield. They'll put him at second base. Does it sound familiar? Sounds like Ronnie Mauricio. So who knows what's going to happen here with this prospect here. At least it's a little higher level prospect than you saw in the Robertson trade, where all you got back was two 18-year-olds in rookie ball who won't be up till 2027. And at least here you got a double-A player who maybe can make an impact next season. However, to me, it wasn't enough on the return. I think when it comes to these minor leaguers, unless it's such a can't-miss prospect, it's all about quantity over quality. And here you didn't get much quantity. You only got one player back. To help me break all this down, joining me now is a good friend of mine. It is Pat Ragazzo of Sports Illustrated's. Pat, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
So, Pat, you were there as this all went down on Saturday, and Scherzer gets traded. So, first, walk us through what it was like for you and your colleagues during this rain delay with all this news leaking out about, maybe Scherzer's going to get traded any minute now.
It was a bit of a surprise because up until that point, all we had heard about was Justin Verlander was drawing interest from several teams, including the Texas Rangers. And all of a sudden, the news pops up that the Rangers and the Mets were in deep discussions about Max Scherzer. And like I said, it was a bit of a surprise, just considering the value of Verlander was much higher than Scherzer, just because of the recent performance and the overall seasons that they're having. I mean, Verlander's having a much better season than Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer is looking like he's on a steep decline, and he's had a rough stretch as of late. So it was kind of like a whole saga in a way, because it took a while for the deal to get done, everything to get hammered out. How much money were the Mets going to send to the Rangers? How much money were the Rangers going to pick up? Who was the prospect that was going to be sent back? And because the Mets covered $35 million, they got a better prospect in Luis Angel Acuna, of course, Ronald Acuna's baby brother, having a very strong year in Double-A, and already by some prospect experts is ranked as the number one prospect in the Mets system. So Yeah, this was a kind of an extensive trade that unfolded, and a bit of a surprise. And Scherzer had to waive his no trade clause, and the details had to get hammered out, and it eventually happened. And it was it just kind of signaled that I had heard the day before that the Mets were in full sale mode, which means trading Scherzer, trading Verlander, and that trade just kind of signaled that they're open for business.
So maybe they're going with the strategy here of let's get all-stars younger brothers. We heard in the offseason they were going to try to get Soto's younger brother in international free agency, and now they're getting Acuna's younger brother. So watch out. If there's a star out there with younger brother in baseball, maybe Epler's going to try to get them. So they make this trade before the game or as the game's about to start in the rain delay. What kind of message do you think that was sent there to the locker room? Because I think that trade played a direct impact in how bad and poor fundamentally the team played Saturday night in the loss to the Nationals.
Well, yeah, it wasn't a morale booster, that's for sure. The Robertson trade kind of signaled that they were waving the white flag on the season, that they're no longer trying to compete for a wild card spot this season. And, that's what signaled it when Robertson was traded, and then also when Scherzer was traded as well.
Do you think the Scherzer trade signals that we're not going to go all in for 2024? Or do you think maybe they are saying Acuna could help in 2024? What was your takeaway from Epler's press conference that he did on Sunday?
Well, yeah. So Epler said that the expectations aren't going to be as high going into next season, which I think was a little bit of an alarming quote. I understand what he means. They're not going to spend like drunken sailors again in free agency, because look where it got them this year. It doesn't equate to wins. That being said, they still do need to cover for the holes in their farm system. They are going to have to still spend in free agency to some degree to be competitive. He says they're going to be competitive next season, but they're going to have to spend some money to do so, because again, they don't have they don't necessarily have guys coming up. But Acuna could potentially contribute next year. But the Mets need pitching. And they haven't gotten pitching so far in these trades that they've made. So yeah, they're from based off Epler's comments, they're going to be competitive. They're going to make some moves, but they're not going to go crazy like they did this past offseason.
Yeah, I thought that was a very alarming statement, because looking to next offseason, you already assumed they were going to go crazy with the money, because maybe they're going to dish out $700 million for Ohtani. I would assume that's still on the table, but maybe it'd be even tougher to get him here now, because the roster around him won't necessarily be a win-now team. And you trade Scherzer, and then you already had these rotation issues. Obviously, next year, I would hope Verlander is going to be back, because I think otherwise you're going to have a big problem. What's your feel here right now on Verlander as we approach the deadline? What do you think is going to happen? And what did you think of his comments after the game, after his last start on Sunday, where he got a standing ovation by the Citi Field faithful?
Well, yeah. So he's still drawing interest from teams. Dodgers are one of them. There's a chance that he gets moved, but I think that if the Mets want to compete next year, that they're better off holding on to him, because they're not going to have an ace next year if they get rid of him. I mean, they already got rid of Scherzer. They're better off hanging on to Verlander. And his comments after the game, I mean, he addressed the Max Scherzer trade and just said that it kind of changes everything for him. That he indicated that he'd be willing to waive his no trade clause, and it was going to have a conversation with the front office, and rightfully so. But it seemed like he was more open to being traded and waiving his no trade clause, now that Scherzer had been moved.
I think he would love to be traded to the Astros and go another World Series and still gets his money and more money, actually, because of the no state income tax in Texas, we'll say. But I think moving forward for the Mets, assuming they keep Verlander, him and Senga, those are the aces moving forward here. Senga has proven to be worth every penny so far. And I really think there should be some serious discussion about him winning the Rookie of the Year. I know Corbin Carroll has been phenomenal with the Diamondbacks, but it's tougher, I think, for a pitcher to come and take the league by storm. Not as likely that a Rookie of the Year is a pitcher, and he's been great. But you got the two guys there. You have Senga and Verlander at the top of the rotation next year. Quintana, maybe they move him now, and then it's kind of just a mystery for next year. So don't you think that Epler is kind of forcing Cohen's hand here, where if they want to compete next year, they have to spend some money on pitchers? And I think that it seems plausible, Pat, that the Mets are going to put a big push on to sign Blake Snell in the offseason, although this regime has been very hesitant to give out long-term deals to pitchers. Usually they're on the 2-year deals, but the pitchers that are going to be there next offseason that could help a team, they're probably going to want 4, 5, 6-year deals. So what have you been hearing about maybe the Mets' willingness to have to go long-term on those pitching contracts? Because like you said, they need to fill out the rotation somehow.
Yeah, the Mets are going to have to bite the bullet next year and probably dish out a long-term contract or two to a pitcher. Whether it be Blake Snell, Julio Urias, Jack Flaherty, Jordan Montgomery, Lucas Giolito. I don't, unless they get Ohtani, they're going to have to spend money on one of those other, starting pitchers. So that's just the reality of the situation. I mean, David Peterson was given his opportunity this year and he floundered. Tyler McGill was given his opportunity and he faltered. Beyond that, they don't really have pitching prospects who are really close. They have some guys who are getting close, but they don't have anybody who's probably going to be ready to step into the rotation, going into next season. So they are going to probably have to dish out a long-term contract or two, to a starting pitcher.
Yeah, I think Tidwell is probably their best prospect right now, and he's probably 2 years away at least. And if you go into next season with, let's say, Verlander, Senga, Ohtani, and Blake Snell, Aaron Nola, that should be pretty solid for the 4 out of 6-man rotation you get with Ohtani, and that could maybe potentially allow you to compete. But like you said, you're going to have to spend the money. So to hear Epler say they're not going to spend crazy anymore when now they're going to have to really spend crazy, it's interesting. Now, my question for you, Pat, is why is Tommy Pham still on this team? As of the time we're recording this Monday morning, Tommy Pham is still on this team. I thought he should have been the first person to get traded. Why is he still on the team right now?
Well, he's drawn some interest from the Dodgers and the Twins and some other teams. So is Mark Canha. And I don't know. It is a little surprising that, both those players are still on the team. And I think at least one of them gets traded, in the next day or two. It might just come down to the wire that, the Mets are, it wasn't a priority to trade, Canha or Pham. And now that they got Scherzer and Robertson out of the way, then now they can kind of focus on trading one of those two outfielders. Brooks Raley is also drawing interest, and of course Justin Verlander is too. So the Mets aren't done, and they have their work cut out for them.
What are you hearing about maybe Adam Ottavino being moved or Jose Quintana? Do you see either of those guys being moved?
I think it's less likely because those guys have another year of control. So I think that both of those players will probably be factored into the team in 2024.
So we mentioned it a little earlier. The Mets have not traded for their biggest need, which is starting pitching. They traded for a catcher, which they definitely don't need with Alvarez and Parada. And now they got 2 more middle infielders, 2 more shortstops, really, which, take a shortstop. They're an athlete moving around, but they need to get pitching. So do you think if they do trade Canha or they do trade Pham or they do trade Raley, that they're going to be looking to get a pitcher here, or are they going to just continue to go for the best prospect available?
They'll probably continue to go for the best prospect available, although you'd like to see them get pitching prospect because it is a need, but like I said, it'll probably just be best prospect available.
All right, we'll see how they continue to go about that there. Now, looking at this team here, they're creeping back towards 500. Do you think that after this series win here, the locker room is going to consider to, say, listen, we're here. We've been hearing all the press conferences, and you're sitting in there you're in the locker room with the guys. They're saying, Lindor is saying we still have this chance to make a run. We believe in ourselves. So do you think after this trade deadline, if more stuff comes, that the players in the locker room are going to come to the realization of we're not going to make a run this year? The management doesn't believe in us. Or do you think it's going to be the reverse, where it's like, in spite of management moving our key players, we're going to do our best here and maybe we will make a run?
Maybe a little bit of both. I mean, the reality's there. It's management. The team didn't play well enough this season, and management did what they had to do, and that's sell off, on the team. And the players are still going to play. The guys are still trying to, maybe some guys are trying to prove themselves. Maybe some guys are a little more secure, but they still want to win. So, they're going to play and try and win. And it's a tough reality when when your team starts selling off because you didn't play well enough, and that's where the Mets are, in the grand scheme of things.
It would be nice to see them take a sweep of the Royals and make things a little interesting, at least to get 2 games under 500. And, ultimately, if they do make a run, they'll probably lose a big game to the Marlins, where David Robertson has a 6-out save to kind of say, that's it. Robertson, I don't know if you have heard anything, but it seemed like he didn't want to be moved. He was not happy about being moved because of his family, loves New York. Do you think this kind of sours the ties between the organization and Robertson, or could you see a scenario where they do sign him in the offseason to bring him back?
Yeah, I don't think it sours ties. I think that he has a good relationship with Billy Epler, a long relationship with Billy Epler, and he loves New York. So yeah, I think that there's a possibility that they could re-sign him in the offseason.
Yeah, I think if you could see him with Diaz, which is what we wanted to see, I think that's really good 8th and 9th. So hopefully the team does pursue bringing him back in the offseason, because he was great this year. He's everything you could have asked for. What are you hearing about the Mets looking ahead here as far as what their thoughts are on a Mark Vientos and a Brett Beatty? Underperforming, both of them at the big league level. Vientos, it seems like, obviously all year they haven't played him, so I don't think they're focusing him in the future too much. But do you think that the Mets, especially with all Epler's comments, are going to go into next year with Beatty starting? Or do you see them maybe looking to potentially move him to improve in the offseason, maybe to get that pitcher, maybe, someone like Corbin Burns or someone who's going to be a free agent the following year, and maybe signing somebody to play third base, or maybe one of these new guys that they traded for playing third base? What are your senses about Brett Beatty moving forward and then Mark Vientos?
I think that Brett Beatty is going to probably be the everyday third baseman going into next year. I think that he deserves that chance. He's their number 2 prospect. He hasn't hit as well as you would have hoped, to see him hit this year. Probably needs to hit the ball in the air more and needs to improve defensively. But, the potential's there. And I think that he is, unless they get an offer that they're blown away for, which is, I feel like is unlikely. I feel like he's going to be the everyday third baseman. And, in addition to that, Vientos, for whatever reason, they're not very high on. I mean, they just haven't given him the opportunity to get regular at bats in the big leagues and see what he can do. But, unless they sign a DH, if they don't wind up signing a DH, then Vientos kind of by default is going to be, the everyday DH, and is going to get his shot. So yeah, I think Beatty will get that opportunity, and Vientos probably won't.
And then Ronnie Mauricio. I don't think there's any chance that the Mets call him up this year because, one, they don't want to start his arbitration, and two, they want to keep his trade value at an all-time high. They don't want to crush it like Vientos they have. So Mauricio here. I don't necessarily think he's going to start next year on the roster, but do you think that early on into next season we could see Mauricio playing either second base with McNeil in the outfield or Mauricio playing left field and making an impact on the big league roster next year?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I mean, he had a monster season this year in AAA. And, the disappointing thing is, like, the guy offensively earned a call up. And, you'd like to see him debut now when he's been hot all season, because there's a chance that if he struggles next year, then you're not going to call him up. But they said that there's still benchmarks that he needs to hit offensively and defensively. So, we're going to have to wait till next season. And I do think he'll play a role next year.
So do you think that they're going to look to play him at maybe left field now because of the trade for Acuna, or does Acuna get moved to the outfield? How do you see them kind of forecasting this roster, like in spring training, as far as where are these prospects going to play in the field?
I think they just want to expand everyone's versatility. So Mauricio is going to play second. He's going to play left. And Acuna is going to play shortstop, second base, and center field. And, it's just going to create opportunities for guys and, like I said, expand their versatility.
So Billy Epler, he's been making all these moves. He kind of feels like he's going to be here for the long term. Again, when you're trading for prospects who probably won't be in the big leagues till 2027, that's kind of looks like he's got some job security. But do you think there's going to be somebody above him after this offseason? Because I think from everything we heard from that Steve Cohen press conference, it really sounds like he's going to make a hard push to get David Stearns to be the president of baseball operations this offseason.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they are going to go hard for David Stearns. And, since Cohen took over the team, he's wanted a president of baseball operations. He hasn't been able to get one. And, since Billy took the job, Billy's been well aware that Steve wanted to bring in a president of baseball operations above him. So, I think that they're going to. I think that Stearns, I know that Stearns is going to be out of his contract after this season. And, at that point, then the Mets are going to go hard for him and hopefully make an offer that he can't refuse.
Absolutely. All right, Pat, this has been great. It's going to be very busy for you over the next 24 to 48 hours. So thank you for your time. Let everybody know where they could find your work and where you'll be sending out the breaking news if there is any more trades that happen.
Of course. You follow me at Ragazzo Report, Ragazzo Report on Twitter, and follow my work at InsideTheMets.com, where you will get full coverage of the trade deadline over the next 2 days. So be sure to follow me there.
All right. Thanks, Pat. And if you're listening, if you haven't already done so, make sure you are following Bleav in the Mets on all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. And that is at BleavintheMets, Bleav in the Mets. And find me on Twitter at Nick_Durst and on Instagram at Nick's Food and Stuff. So that's going to do it for this episode of Bleav in the Mets. Hopefully the Mets make some trades that make sense and get some good prospects that are close to be Major League ready in return. So, Pat, we thank you for your time. And again, this has been Bleav in the Mets. And until next time, everybody, let's go Mets.